Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
So far, so good. What's up? Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule because I know that you are super busy. I'm not going to hold you long. Don't worry. We'll be done before dinner.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Anytime. I want you to think of this as an extension of your office. Now that outside has begun to reopen and we're traveling a little more, when you get to Louisiana, I'm your official tour guide. We're going to make sure that what you get to some good food, but it's going to be on a healthier tip because we're going to talk about all of this today, which
Okay.
is really why I needed to talk to you. Because here in the state of Louisiana, we celebrate with food. If it's a holiday or if it's just an off day, some of the things that we don't think about while we're fixing the plate, possibly family history, our numbers. Is this going to help or hurt? Feels good in the moment, but 2 weeks from now, what is my pressure going to look like? Right. So I always like to leave it open for the experts. And when they said that this interview was available, I was like, absolutely.
Yes. And something you've underscored that is really important is that being aware of what you eat and how much you move is really a first step. Knowing your risk of conditions like type 2 diabetes or prediabetes is why the American Medical Association, the CDC, and the Ad Council have launched the campaign Do I Have Prediabetes.org, just so that people can avail themselves of a really simple 1 minute risk test to know if they're at risk for prediabetes, which is a serious health condition that also puts them not just at risk for progressing to type 2, but also could put them at risk for heart attack and stroke.
Exactly. And I know that it was very important for this collaboration to happen. You had the Ad Council. They're always there to push forth the great message of bringing hope and resources, especially to our communities. And then when you get the CDC and the AMA involved, you're leaving it to the experts to answer those questions that we may have and to even put it on our minds to ask questions that we typically do not. With this entire campaign, what has been one of the biggest challenges for you trying to get the message across to make it click?
Yeah, obviously the real purpose is, in this unique partnership, is to address one of the most pressing issues in the United States. And prediabetes, as I mentioned, is a serious health condition. So the campaign encourages people to take a serious look at their risk for prediabetes, encourages them to take the 1 minute risk test at Do I Have Prediabetes? And there's also a sense of urgency. Now that are emerging from a global pandemic, we have learned that chronic illness and infectious diseases are often thought of as separate lanes
Uh-huh.
in both public health and in healthcare, but the COVID-19 pandemic has really underscored how intimately related these two lanes are and how critically important it is to prevent chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes whenever possible. And
Yeah.
obviously, there are people who have more than one chronic illness, and they really have to be careful about maintaining and managing those chronic illnesses to reduce risk of severe outcomes due to COVID-19.
Now tell me a little bit about this 1 minute test, because it's bad enough we don't want to go through the test, but you mean to tell me in 60 seconds or less is at least going to put me on the path. So walk me through that process. What does that look like?
Yeah, the prediabetes risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org really takes you through a few simple questions, and some of the risk factors, just so that you know, have to do with whether you're overweight, whether have not been physically active, have a parent, brother, or sister, a really close family member that has type 2 diabetes, being over the age of 40, if you've ever had a baby, having a history of gestational diabetes, and obviously if you're Black, African American, Hispanic, or American Indian, these are communities that have higher risk of prediabetes and diabetes. And so these risk factors are part of the risk test that you would take at doihaveprediabetes.org.
And that's something that we need to send out, whether we're sending it out as a subtweet, if we're asking the pastors to say it from the congregation in the pulpit. It's a conversation that needs to be held. Usually we don't talk about it until the doctor is already prescribing us something or until we're sitting in the hot seat. And now we really hot about it because I should have asked these questions or made baby steps. So if we're somewhere within that while we're taking the 60-second or less test, right? What are some of the things that we can do baby steps that will help us to prevent it from becoming type 2?
Yeah. As I mentioned, prediabetes is the wake-up call. So knowing whether you have it or not is a first step. So that awareness. So we need everyone to shout it from the pulpits and from the legislature and from all over the country, just so that people are aware. There are 96 million adults who have prediabetes. That's 1 in 3 Americans.
Wow.
81% of them don't know they have it because prediabetes doesn't have symptoms. But again, it is a serious health condition that puts you at risk. I think it's also important for your listening audience to know that prediabetes can be reversed. It is not inevitable that you have to progress to type 2 diabetes. And at the doihaveprediabetes.org website, you can avail yourselves of, your audience can avail themselves, if they have prediabetes, of lifestyle change programs that are led by the CDC under its National Diabetes Prevention Program. And these are both online and in person, with a personalized coach that helps you to make modest lifestyle changes to help you prevent going to type 2. And that could be moving more. It could be eating a more balanced diet, reducing stress. But this coach is really trained to help walk people through that. And this program has been shown to lower people's risk of progressing to type 2 by as much as almost 60%.
Wow.
And over 70% for those over age 60. So we are very excited to be able to just talk about this resource.
That's amazing. You know, it's an alarming number when you say at least 81% don't even know. They don't know. You know, that's alarming because this is something that's a silent killer, and it's taking us out because we're not asking the questions. We're not going to the doctor. We're not focused on the things that's on our plate, or even the portion control, or did you get your steps in today? And as you mentioned, we're coming back from the whole pandemic. It was a shift that either worked really for or against us, because Doc, that was the most time I've ever spent with myself. I was like, Tan, some of the stuff we all right with. Some of the stuff, girl, you need to work on that like now, you know? So, it had to deal with so much of, did you get your steps in today? Mental, physical, spiritual. And a lot of that we have to make ourselves aware of, to know our bodies, to know when something is a little off. And I appreciate you and the Ad Council, and of course the CDC and AMA, so much for bringing resources. When we do have these questions, you're bringing us the answers and also walking us through the process. Because if we get the answers and now we want to know what's next, you already have what's next posted for us.
That's right. That's right. At doihaveprediabetes.org. And just to underscore your last comments, the COVID-19 pandemic has indirectly increased people's risk of diabetes. You know, during quarantine, we led more sedentary lives. We were at home. Some of our food choices were restricted, and some excess weight started to come on, and people might have even delayed or had disrupted their regular medical care. And so this really put people more into the pre-diabetes range, or those who were already in pre-diabetes into the diabetes range. So that's why it's really important, now that things are opening up a bit, to now figure out ways, modest ways to really reduce stress and to reduce that excess weight and move more. Obviously, and eat better.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Christopher Holliday, you are the real MVP, and don't you dare let them tell you differently.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too.